It's now time to locate the boundaries of the site. We have the building footprint and the path around it. Let's now locate the boundaries. We'll imagine that this site is fairly stock standard with a horizontal line across the front boundary, two side boundaries which are vertical, but the back boundary is a little tricky. It runs at an angle. Well, let's imagine that on site we've taken some measurements. It's fairly easy to measure the distance from the side of the house to one boundary and the other side of the house to the opposite boundary, and the distance of the front of the house to the front boundary. So we've got these measurements on our little mud map. In addition, for the back boundary, we've taken a measure from the left-hand corner of the house as I look at it to that boundary, and from the right-hand corner of the house directly in a straight line to the other boundary. So we have our distances marked on our mud map. How do we go about incorporating those into the design? Well, the offset command's the fairly obvious way to work, but notice when I select the footprint it's still one entity. We did that in order to offset to get the path. So it's one entity. What I'd like to do is to break it into its constituent part lines so I can offset a line to get my boundaries. So I'll select it, right click and pick explode. That breaks things up. So this line here, which is 26 feet away from the boundary, can easily be offset. So we'll go modify and offset. I'll pick the line and right click. The current distance that's been entered in there is 23.75. I'll go back to through point and again there and type in my 26.0 and OK that. Now I'm asked for the side, so indicate the side. So you can see I've got my first boundary in, which overlays the one that I put down originally to build this little diagram. I won't rub the black lines out just for the moment, although perhaps I should have done. Let's actually do that. We'll backtrack a little. Let's take out the lines that I put in and put you back to where you would be if you were following this little exercise. Now we have our dimensions in. I won't do that one again, but let's do the front one. So it should be 23.75. So we right click, repeat the offset command, pick the magenta line here, right click, and we want 23.75, and the side to offset is that one. That gets our front boundary in. Now we've got another side boundary to do, so we can go through point, distance again, this time we want 20, and pick this side and indicate the side. So now we have one boundary line, another boundary line, and a line here at the front. I'll right click to exit from there. We have one quite neat command, modify and fillet. What that does is square them off. So I can say pick this line and I'm going to fillet it with that line there, and away it goes, and this one here and that one there. Notice that I'm picking fairly carefully past the midpoint and right click to exit. So you can see now we have the three of the boundaries in, although we haven't extended here to the back boundary. So let's now finish off the back boundary. It's again offset. We want 35.5. So we pick that one. 35.5, enter, indicate the side, that gets that line, and we want an offset of 40.0, and we pick the very same line again. So now we have those two distances. The next step will be to draw from the end point of one of those offset lines to the other. So we want the line command. I'm going to jump to the end of the first offset line and then draw to the end of the other. Notice that I'm using the snaps to do that, and then I'll exit. So we have our back boundary line in. Notice that it's drawn in a different colour When we offset magenta lines, the resultant line was the same colour. This time we drew a new line, and it's being drawn in the current colour, which is just by layer, and that appears in this instance because I'm working on a white background. It gives me a dark line. But now we want to extend these two lines to intersect with the back boundary. The simplest way to do that is to extend these side boundaries. So let's do the first. If I pick that boundary, and provided polar is on, I can just click on the handle at the end of that line and move up here. I'm going to extend past the intersection of the back boundary with this side boundary, and I'm going to do the same here. Pick on the handle at the end of the line and just go directly up. Do make sure that you're going vertically up, and right click to unselect all. Now we can use the modify extend command, and we're asked for an edge object. We could probably improve that prompt. It should say select the boundary that you wish to extend to, but that's a bit verbose. So we pick that boundary. I think we can do two at once, and we pick this boundary, right click and pick past the midpoint of the line we just drew, and it extends through. Pick past the midpoint again, it extends through, and finally we want to go modify and trim, and the trim command, it asks for a cutting edge first, which is this one here, and then right click to pick the line we want to cut off. Repeat the trim. This is the cutting edge and the one to trim. Now we'll use modify match properties. Pick up the properties of that dark line there, match it to that one there, that one there. Use the wheel of the mouse to roll out and pick that one, and we're done. Now these were essentially construction lines, so they can be removed, and I'll remove these lines because I actually put them on a separate layer, so I can actually go to that layer. It's actually called layer 2. I can just turn that layer off and those lines go. This one wasn't on that layer, so I need to move it to the layer which was called layer 2, which is now turned off, and unselect all. So we finally are in position to begin our design work. We now have the boundaries in their appropriate and correct spot.